Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? I hope y'all guys are staying safe, warm, and stocking up on that food supplies. Okay. Because one thing I've been wanting to talk about for a minute is how things are being run down in America, and things are just not looking great. And now they're talking about accepting Ukraine refugees. So just expect the food supply to really start stretching. So if you're not growing your own food, you don't have any seeds, or you have not stockpiled or on any types of canned foods, I suggest that you do. You know what? That's also a whole nother point of this video as well, is that if you're just not prepared, if you have been listening this whole time but have not taken any action, a lot of people are just gonna have to be left behind when it comes to these type of things, because the warnings have been going off for a long time. And I get it, people like to do the scare tactics and the fear tactics, but you need to be prepared, because although the pandemic was not quote unquote bad like we thought it was going to be, but there was an amount of supplies that um that were subdued because people were just, hoarding and overstocking. And of course, with the whole toilet paper thing, because it was funny, because I was one of the people like, why are you getting up all the toilet paper, blah, blah, blah. But then when I have to go to the store, now all the toilet paper gone. So, early bird gets the worm. People wouldn't have to be worried about no toilet paper from either side if they would have just stocked up on their own and just took the proper precautions. But like I said, again, you really just have to be careful and have a plan when navigating the society, because as the title of this video, assimilation is no joke. And I come across too many Aboriginal people who, for one, don't know what assimilation is, or two, they don't think assimilation exists, right? And I talk about this frequently. I talk about how there's too many Aboriginal people coming online lying, talking about assimilation is a myth. Aboriginal people are not assimilated. Black people are assimilated. It's just this whole banter of lies. And I'm telling y'all guys, like, a lot of our people are suffering from illusion, right? And it's one thing to hallucinate, but it's another thing to become disillusioned altogether. Because right now, a lot of Aboriginal people are living a fantasy life underneath a system that does not care for them. And although they know it does not care for them, they still want you to get in line. Okay. And this varies, but for the most part, if you don't listen to the pale man, if you question the pale man, if you antagonize the pale man, you're going to have a whole bunch of Aboriginal people coming at your neck and saying, oh my God, why are you doing this to white people? White people ain't never did anything to us, and blah blah blah. Like, it's just too many Aboriginal people that are drinking the flavor aid. Okay, because I know a lot of y'all say Kool-Aid, but it's actually flavor aid that man had those people drinking in Jonestown. So again, a lot of people are drinking the flavor aid and thinking that there's nothing wrong with that, and it is. So I'm gonna show y'all guys a tweet. Well, tweets I tweeted the other day, because y'all know I love me some Twitter. Okay, even though Twitter be ratchet, Twitter be ratchet, and it be the most assimilated ass people on here. But I love Twitter because I just come across so many things, you know? So, um, right here, I talk about assimilation, and I say assimilation was the domestication process of Aboriginal people. What does domesticated look like? Ponder on that. Put yourself in the shoes of that person who is undergoing it. Now look at your life and your surroundings. Put it all into perspective. This is reality. And I put this quote in my next tweet because I always hear people say, "Oh, well, I live my life how I want. White people ain't stopping nothing, blah blah blah." But yet we are still under another demographic with their ruling. You know, we cannot sit here and complain that land is being stolen, but at the same time say white man does not have any ruling. Which one is it? And that's why I'm saying a lot of Aboriginal people are suffering from cognitive dissonance because we know we have undergo severe oppression, and we know that oppression still exists, maybe not to an extremity, but we know that it's still there. But yet there are still many Aboriginal people that will lie and say oppression no longer exists. So when I ask them, why are you not building up the community? Why are you not volunteering at these shelters or donating clothes? Something to that extent, they say, oh, well, it's the white man. It's the white man. Do y'all not see how why people don't take Aboriginal people seriously? Because we already know that other people don't like us and they want us to assimilate to where we are non existent. But when y'all suffer this cognitive dissonance and then y'all go online about the oppression our people receive, because then again, just because you're not enduring it does not mean other Aboriginal people aren't. Because one thing with the colonizers is that they're going to pick one person, right? Or they're going to pick a group of people and make an example out of them. So they don't even necessarily have to beat, kill, the R word, women and children. Like they don't even have to do all that. They can just select one person or a select group of individuals to carry out that assimilation process. And then it will start to trickle down and start to affect other Aboriginal people. Because I feel as though Aboriginal people or quote unquote Black people purposely not talk about Black people owning slaves or Aboriginal people owning slaves because, for one, they don't want to take accountability for that. And two, they don't want to realize that, or they don't want to accept that slavery is not only a part of the assimilation process, but Aboriginal people have played a huge part in that. Because what people fail to understand is that a lot of former slaves were becoming slave owners and enslaving other Aboriginal or quote unquote Negro people. So when you have all that going on, white people don't need to constantly get their hands dirty. Aboriginal or Black people are doing the dirty work for them. They are doing the devil's work for them. So, Aboriginal people, I need y'all to understand that how you treat other Aboriginal people is either going to slow down the assimilation process or speed it up. Because again, um, there are Aboriginals that are out of the system that never been in the system. And like I mentioned in my bottom tweet, there are tribes who are still uncontacted. However, at any moment, these terrorists can invade and domesticate them as well. And let's talk about domestication for a second because I want y'all to put this into example because I know on my YouTube thumbnail I have a picture of a pale person putting a finger in a dog's face, right? And to me, that symbolizes the relationship that Aboriginals have with the assimilation process, or the group that is trying to get us to assimilate to their liking, aka the wealthy white demographic. Okay, because again, these wealthy, mind you, I said wealthy. I didn't say average day regular folk white people, okay? Because one thing that I see that Aboriginal people do is y'all take y'all anger out on random pale people, and although these pale people may have had it coming to them, calling us the N words, spitting at us, calling them monkeys, that calls for a butt whooping, okay? But yet there are rich pale people that control the chessboard for all of us, okay? Not just for Aboriginal people, but for pale people as well. And people forget that pale people have also underwent their own assimilation process by their own people. Okay, because remember, I told y'all guys, pale people were actually, there were times pale people were actually accepting their biracial children as white. But in my honest opinion, I feel like once the white supremacists got what they wanted, or they felt like they got to a certain status of power, they don't need their show ponies, they don't need their biracial offspring, they don't need the self-hating Negroes to do their dirty work anymore. And that's why Walter Plecker came in and started disposing all of these people that no longer fit the criteria of the new white. Okay, so again, when it comes to being domesticated, Aboriginal people, they don't see it as domestication. They don't see Indian schools, aka boarding schools, to be a part of the assimilation process. But again, we had to cut our hair, we had to stop speaking our tribal language. And even for the natives, right? Even for the natives, we saw how the assimilation process really affected that native man, because he went from being a dark native, and although he already looked white, just darker, when he underwent the assimilation process, he came out looking like a white man, or he could pass for a modern day Mexican or mestizo. So the assimilation process really does affect the health and well-being of a person. And um and in my conclusion, I feel like also the assimilation process can affect one's skin tone as well, just like how diseases like diabetes that can cause their skin tone to fluctuate. There are diseases or illnesses that affects the melatonin in people's certain body parts, and that's why their skin may appear darker in the face or in other places. Well, for my point of view, I see assimilation as a way to really not just widen out their mind, but also widen out their skin too. Because when Aboriginal people undergo severe assimilation, they're not, it's not even that they don't speak their tribal language anymore. Their whole look completely changes. Okay, it completely changes. So when it comes to domestication and what it looks like, it looks like how you would do with a dog, telling them to sit, roll over, and when they do what you tell them to do, they get a treat, right? So, same way with Aboriginal people. All the pale man got to do is come over, domesticate us, like they did. Say, hey, you can't practice your spiritual beliefs anymore. You can't embrace your spirituality anymore. You can't do this, you can't do that. And if you do this, it's going to be dire consequences. We're going to beat you. We're going to take away the incentives for you doing right by our standards and rules. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, we're going to punish you. And we're going to show you how to be a good boy. We're going to show you how to be a good dog. So when this happens, right? Because I'm just going to show y'all dog training right quick. Because I really want y'all to put this all into perspective. Right? So what's different? What's different than pale people doing this to dogs versus pale people doing this to us? Because again, Aboriginal people, there were times where we had to wear devices and tools that let the pale man know that we were trying to escape, or we were trying to get away from being assimilated, and that's why they were putting bells and all types of torturous stuff on our faces, if we didn't act right. So it's really no different. They pale people have domesticated Aboriginal people into being their best friend. It's really no difference. Look at this dog raising up on his back two legs to get a treat. And one thing that people fail to realize is that pale people, when it comes to racism, they act as narcissists. Racism, in my honest opinion, is a form of narcissism, right? So when it comes to narcissists, they have certain verbiage that they use that can trigger the mindset of its victim, right? And to the average person, you know, they just saying a regular word, but to their victim, they're letting them know, like, hey, stay in check, keep in check, or otherwise I can embarrass you. Because think about it. If you are undergoing abuse or being domesticated as some form of fashion, and you speak out about it, or you don't like how someone's speaking to you, and to the average person, they may be speaking cool, calm, quietly, may not have said anything out of ordinary. But you know, for example, okay, let's say that you have been with this abuser for a while. You've been trying to leave, they won't let you leave. Every time you um pack a bag or two, they two steps ahead of you. They they snatch the bag from you, they lock you in the basement and let that be that. They let you go some days without food, they slap you around a bit. It's just horrible, right? So when it's time to start showing you off and showing you around, because now people are like, hey, what happened to home girl? She been disappearing, so now they gotta, you know, show you up to the public, so people don't think that you're dead. So let's say, for example, this person, right? When it was time to feed you, they would come in and give you some chicken, right? And let's say that this chicken was moldy, it had worms in it, like just all worst type of food ever they can give you. And they're forcing you to eat this food, right? They're forcing you to eat this food, or they threatening, if you don't do right, I'm going to feed you this food. I'm going to feed you the chicken with the worms and the parasites and the mold in it, okay? So when they get you out in public, and they be like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have chicken tonight." You gonna look at that fool like, "Oh my god, what he just say?" And that's go and and to people around you, they're gonna be like, "Oh, why are you tripping? And she just said chicken. Why you? Oh dang, like your girl be tripping. Like no wonder, like you be doing that blah blah blah." Like people don't understand how abusers work. And that's why abusers will always stay on top because people don't understand the tell signs of abuse because they were not there to undergo that abuse. And I'm telling y'all right now, a lot of melanated people, you melanated people, are going through um PTSD, right? I have PTSD. And some of y'all will say, "Oh yeah, PTSD, post traumatic slave disorder," but it's not. That's not what the classification is for. PTSD is post traumatic stress disorder. And see, with Aboriginal people have undergone so much stress to the point where they're going to sympathize with their abusers, no matter if they're physically putting hands on them or not. And a lot of Aboriginal people fail to understand what abuse is, what it looks like, and so on and so forth. And that's why the assimilation process looks so foreign to Aboriginal people when they start to put it in reality into context, because the Aboriginal people, this is what we have been bred to do. We have been bred to assimilate, to follow rules, and to follow orders. And I'm gonna tell y'all this because all types of people have undergone some type of assimilation process when they have came into contact with European people. Now there are people out there that have kept the ways of their people, but they are still domesticated and assimilated in some way, fashion, or form to keep up with today's society and manners. And this is why I said what I said in my last tweet, because there's no point in saying, "Oh, I live the life how I want," but yet if you want to go fishing, you need a fishing license. And in some states, it's illegal to collect rainwater. They have made it to where self sufficiency is on a piece of paper instead of something that you actually live out. Because again, our ancestors, they didn't need no pieces of paper. Like, and and Aboriginal people, they may think, "Oh well, my ancestors, they weren't smart enough to write things down." No, they is you can't think like a colonizer and then come over here and try to um you know smug your way into Aboriginal people's spaces, because if you think like a colonizer, it's going to get called out. It's going to get called out because this thing that people have with their reality, right? They're like, "Oh, I could do whatever I want, blah, blah, blah." That's fine. You are speaking to the occult aspect of creating the reality that you want. But however, at the end of the day, we all live underneath a system that was created against us. And no matter what type of voodoo or type of spell magic you do, the system has gained a really big spiritual presence. It has sacrificed so many people, and still to this day, they talking about rituals taking place in Hollywood and all that stuff. So we know that this stuff has not ceased to exist. So if Aboriginal people want the assimilation process to stop, for one, they have to stop entertaining it, and we just have to go off and do our own thing completely. And the thing is, too many Aboriginal people are trying to be free underneath a system that is not made to free anybody. It's made to keep people enslaved. As a matter of fact, I want y'all to listen to this song. It's by Killer Mike. Yeah, Reagan. So I used to watch this when I was in high school. It's called Killer Mike Reagan. And it goes into a really deep perspective because if you think pale people don't know that we all under some type of assimilation process, guess again. Because that's the whole reason why they even stormed the White House last year. Pale people know this is not the system that their ancestors invaded our ancestors for. When the pale people came over here, the biggest thing was they did not want the government to overrule the people like it did before. And I know that Aboriginal people have many bones to pick with pale people, but I want y'all guys to understand this because some of my ancestors was Huguenots, right? And I believe they were the you melanated ones, not the pale ones, because on their documents, it goes from black to white. So I'm thinking that they were, just quote unquote people of color. So people forget that the Huguenots, they were portrayed by their own people. They sit there and had a whole treaty with the Huguenot people and did not value it. So my question is, what makes you think that pale people are going to value treaties, value paperwork when their family, when their moms, their dads, their uncles, whoever was teaching them that it's just a piece of paper? And why do you think that many times they have to resort to battle, killing, and stealing? Because they knew that they're not going to even get far with their own group. Okay. That's why they set on, if it's not working properly, we are going to take over, because they already know who they have dealt with, who they dealing with, and how they get down. And Aboriginal people still think that, oh, well, if we just straighten our hair, if we just pull up our pants, if we just speak like white people, if we act like we have some sense, they will treat us better. And I do agree to an extent. Aboriginal people do need to do better when it comes to their image and how they upkeep themselves. But remember, pale people met our people at their best. There were tribes who do not know, that did not know what murder, rape was. They didn't know any of those type of things was until the pale people came and started colonizing everybody. So if they were able to meet Aboriginal people who were kind-hearted, that wasn't taking advantage of each other, to me, that's as better as it's gonna get. Because we have not been able to achieve that since coming into contact with pale people. And remember, um, I know Charles Manson is a pale supremacist, but even he was talking about, you took, these people out the jungle and you tried to make them like you, right? So even if a pale supremacist can see that, then that lets me know that pale people know more than what they are trying to lead us to believe. Because again, what people fail to realize is that pale people, they don't need to do the dirty work. They can just get another person of color to do the dirty work. They don't necessarily even have to be in our faces anymore, because there's always going to be some type of self-hating Negro, self-hating Latino, self-hating somebody that's going to come to their rescue and be caping for them when they be racist or prejudiced to people. So at the end of the day, everybody is being screwed by the system, but the system has a membership, like I told y'all before, and that membership is whiteness. And if you have just enough whiteness, or you are in proximity to whiteness, they may just accept you as white, as we see with the Latino community. Because there's a lot of white Latinos out there, and right now there's Latinos trying to say, oh well, We Aboriginal, we Indigenous, but yet they're still forgetting that there are mestizos and they're mixed white people. Mixed white people and mestizos do exist, but people want us to believe that dark skinned Aboriginal people don't exist. And yet, here we are, we're still here. So, I really want y'all guys to ponder on the things I have said, because domestication looks a lot like dog training, just to the extremities and more so with another person. Okay, because even with the domestication for animals, they even get better treatment than Aboriginal people. So with dogs, it seems, I mean, because they say dogs have been domesticated for thousands of years, so it's not really going to take much for them to be domesticated. But for Aboriginal people, it's going to take more than just shock collars and treats to get us to assimilate. They have to bring in religion into the mix. And I know a lot of Aboriginal people don't like to admit that religion is a part of the domestication and the assimilation process, but Aboriginal people just gonna have to get over that. Because how is it that we are woke until it comes to religion? Religion is the biggest hindrance to Aboriginal people. And if you disagree, then I have to say you're assimilated. You are assimilated. You are assimilated. And the pale person would have no problem using you to force other Aboriginal people to assimilate. Because look at it. Look at it from this point of view. Here is a group of Aboriginal people. And here goes this Aboriginal person who has been colonized and has accepted the ways of the pale man. This person comes over here and start trying to spread the philosophy of the pale people. And they will say things like, oh, well, Jesus was a black man, or oh, the Bible was based in Africa. Okay, but yet we in America, boo. We ain't Africans. So what that got to do with us? And granted, there are Aboriginal people who already knew the stories of the Bible, but yet we didn't see it as stories as the Bible. It just things that, we already knew or came into contact with. And even with the Mandan tribe, they was talking about how they came across a pale man speaking the stories of the Bible. And that's how they got to incorporate some of that into their spirituality and religion. So pale people have been trying to colonize Aboriginal people when it comes to that. When it comes to Aboriginal people, spirituality, they've been trying to get us to replace our spiritual systems with their religious beliefs. And that's a whole big issue. And the thing is, Christopher Columbus wasn't the only European to come over, for all this time. There were plenty of European people that were coming over to the Americas, trying to colonize, trying to establish some type of settlements over here. And many have failed. Many have failed greatly. Christopher Columbus, he was just the the feather that broke the camel's back or something. I don't know, but we all really have to put these things into perspective. Why do they want us to believe in religion? Why do they want us to rely on them to give us food supply? Why do they want us to rely on them to give us water supply? Why do they want us to be completely dependent on them to abuse and misuse us? It's just no other way around it. I really want y'all guys to start studying the ways of abusers, because Aboriginal people are in love with their abusers. They're in love with their abusers' religion, culture, anything that's attached to them. They love it. And that's why so many Aboriginal people are falling for the okey doke in partners, because they don't know what healthy love is. They don't know what it looks like when someone actually cares for them. And that's why many Aboriginal people fall for abusers, because Aboriginal people have been taught that abusers are people that love them, that care for them, that care about their well-being and safety. Even though we can see that this nigga is clearly beating their ass, don't care about them, doing sexual coercion, okay, trying to impregnate them and leave them to defend for themselves. Like it's abuse goes so many ways. It really does. It really does. So when Aboriginal people start to really take care of their mental, start getting some mental help, and once they get that mental help, they go off and separate. Because right now, the biggest thing Aboriginal people need to do is get their mind right, heal, get some self love, and love other Aboriginal people that look like them, and they need to get that settled before they even try to find a Aboriginal community to join, because there's so many Aboriginal people complaining that there's no schools, there's no cities, there's no nothing. How can we have something when there's so many Aboriginal people who hate themselves and want to see other Aboriginal people go down? Because that's another side effect of the assimilation process. You start to hate the people that look like you and you come from, because you are being assimilated in a manner that is super degrading and dehumanizing, that you start to hate the womb that you come from. And that's why there are so many Aboriginal men out there offing Aboriginal women. And I'm actually going to talk about this whole gender war thing too, because that is also a part of the assimilation process. So I'm just gonna have to really start busting down this content with this stuff, because I want y'all to get an understanding of what's happening in front of us. Because we can't get a hold onto anything if folks can't get their mind right. And most importantly, the ones that just still can't get it together, they're gonna have to be left behind. Because if you already ain't owning land, if you don't have your food supply, if you're not growing your food, you already left behind. There's a group of Aboriginal people out there already that's getting their land, they're buying land, they're starting communities. Hell, there's wealthy Aboriginal communities still out there, but yet Aboriginal people don't move to those communities. So again, if you want it, you have to create it or find somewhere that has it already and add to that. And right now, there's too many Aboriginal people that don't want to add to anything. They just want to exist and not do their part. And that's just not going to work. It's going to take a collective effort for us to succeed. Remember the saying, it takes a village? It takes a village, you know? It may be an African proverb, I think, but it's still true. It does take a village. We all have to do our part. We have to all do our part. If you want to see change, you got to do what Michael Jackson said. You got to look at yourself and make that change. And just too many Aboriginal people are trying to avoid that. They're trying to avoid trying to unassimilate themselves. And I mean, I'm telling y'all right now, if y'all trying to build these communities right now, we're going to fall into the same cycle, because Aboriginal people are not changing their mindset when it comes to people that look like them, to people that they come across, and to how they treat other Aboriginal people. Because right now, all this, I don't like dark butts, these nappy headed heifers, all like you are screaming assimilation to me. You are screaming you are assimilated. And at this point, Aboriginal people need to separate themselves from Negroes or these mixed white people that y'all be trying to claim that is black or Aboriginal. We just have to separate ourselves from them. And we're gonna have to separate ourselves from Aboriginal people who want to just claim any and everybody black so they can have bibs off in their coochie or sit on that Chico stick, if you know what I mean. Because if you just lying and claiming that these mixed white people or biracial people are Aboriginal, that lets me know that you are just wanting to explore your options. And instead of you just saying, oh, well, I dated interracially, you're trying to count these people as Aboriginal or black, knowing full blown well they don't have two Aboriginal parents. Because right now, the fact that there are Aboriginals that feel like every Aboriginal out there is mixed with white is a problem. Then that lets me know that assimilation has done a great job on the mental of our people. Y'all, I came across a tweet, y'all, that said, most black women mothers are white women. As a matter of fact, let's look at that. Let's see if I can find that tweet. Cause I remember I was like, no, we do not. No, we do not all have white moms. And that's why I'm saying, like, too many of y'all are drinking the flavor aid when it comes to this. There should be no reason why y'all over here saying we all have white mothers or we have a lot of white mothers. No, we do not. See, look, here it is. Okay, yeah, so here we are. Here we are again. People are mad because, this Aboriginal queen, right? And I know her phenotype doesn't really necessarily look Aboriginal, but she could be Aboriginal to Africa, okay? Because Aboriginal means you are indigenous to a place, right? To an area. That's the definition of Aboriginal. And if you don't know, look up the etymology of the word Aboriginal, right? It means from the source. Okay. So again, this woman, all things black women, I see her on my timeline all the time. And she was just talking about how we finally got some type of representation, and how the Aboriginal female representation in Hollywood is in the trenches. And this person says Zendaya is black, Storm Reed is black. Am I losing my mind? Yes, you are. And so, of course, this person said, "Okay, that's a wild name, Native European Moorish. Okay, that's a wild name." But anyway, and then someone says she has a white mother, which she does. And then so this person gonna say, oddly enough, a lot of black women have white mothers. The point you thought we're making doesn't exist. Zendaya is black. Keep it reading that until it sinks in for you. Mind you, if Zendaya was black, she would not have a white mom. Her mom would be black or quote unquote Aboriginal. So again, a lot of black women don't have white mothers. You are talking about biracial women. Like, do people not understand genetics anymore? And this is why a lot of y'all are saying race is a social construct, because y'all are making up the rules as you go. And y'all keeping ties on eugenics and what these pale people have created, so you can just count the undesirables from the white people, and give them a safe home. And right now I really need Aboriginal people to stop trying to force other Aboriginal people to do that, because we're not playing cap the saber hole to the undesirables to pale people. If pale people have already put out there that they're not accepting biracial people anymore, neither are Aboriginal people, period. And I don't care if y'all keep saying, oh, well, there are Aboriginal people that have white ancestry, or you have white ancestry. If you don't have two Aboriginal parents, then you are either biracial or non-Aboriginal. It is what it is. Y'all are trying to remix eugenics and trying to remix like what the one drop rule was actually used for. I hear so many Aboriginal people say, "Oh, well, the black string gene's so strong that it make the baby black. If the baby come from a black man, it's black." Y'all are just repeating the same jargon that the elders and ancestors have repeated, so they won't feel inferior to these pale people. Because pale people, they're not saying that the black gene is so strong, and so powerful, right, that it just makes the child black. They said, ew, this child has some black or Aboriginal whatever ancestry. Even though it's part white, I can't claim it as my own because its blood is tainted with the Negro blood. I'm going to say it again because some people are very disillusioned when it comes to the assimilation process and how pale people see interracial dating, biracial people, etc. They view it when it's not for the pale man benefit, right? It seems as something disgusting. Because pale men, they can indulge in interracial relationships all they want and not really not really get that much consequences from it. But if a pale woman does it, oh, she is discarded from her community. Her community is not looking her way. They won't ever look her way. And her status lowers when she get with a man of darker color. The pale man has already set up this system. So they're going to ostracize the pale women, right? Because what y'all fail to realize is that when these pale women be hooking up with these you melanated men, shoot, some of these white families are making funerals for them and they not even dead. Okay, like that's how serious it is when they intermix with Aboriginal people. And it's not so much as it's just it being hateful. Yeah, we can say it's hateful of them to do that, but they're letting her know that, hey, you can't raise this Negro status by him being with you. Only we can do that. Only the pale man can do that. The white woman can't. And see, there are still Aboriginal men out there, quote unquote black men, you melanated men, whatever you want to call them, that's still chasing that dream that if they can get a pale person, a pale woman, that their status can be raised. Because back in the day, they would actually let them think that they were white people if they did get a white woman and if their children were light enough or look close to white. They could assimilate easily. So again, there are Aboriginal people still trying to use the same tactics and beliefs the pale people put out there, and it's not working anymore. Pale people have already told y'all their membership has closed down for people who are visibly mixed or have too much Negro blood in them. I do not make the rules. I'm just letting y'all know history. Because a lot of Aboriginal people have seen the failed science class and failed to recognize, observe, and study the people that they claim that are their enemy. So again, Aboriginal people are chasing a dream that they can never achieve. So again, the erasure still continues. Because pale people, believe it or not, they're trying to make a new race of pale people that are still visibly pale, but their genetics are stronger because of the intermixing they have been doing with Aboriginal or other melanated people. I really need y'all to stop underestimating pale people. because it's just a hot mess. It's just a hot mess. Please stop underestimating pale people. And look, biracial is not a slur. Why are people so angry when we call people that are biracial what they are? By that logic, she is white because one black parent means black, then one white mom means she's white too. Yeah, exactly. So why is everybody one dropping people who have black blood, right? Just not even much black blood or Negro blood. It can be the tiniest amount in our communities, right? But yet we can't do the same for pale people. Because I'm telling y'all right now, I would be causing hell. Just like how these mixed white people are causing hell in our communities, I would do it over there and with them too. I'd be like, my DNA test said I am 10% white. Where is my white supremacy membership? Like, I'm not even like the hell. Like, why is it that, these mixed white people, right? These mestizos, these biracial people are constantly bogarting our spaces, demanding that we accept them, how they should be seen as Indian or black or whatever, right? Knowing that they have high amounts of white ancestry. Because that's the thing. You can have white ancestry and still be an Aboriginal person, but it depends on how much of that white ancestry that is. Because them genetics, them genes, and that phenotype does not lie. And I know y'all like to say, oh, well, places don't really have much to do with phenotypes. And I have to disagree because your phenotype will adapt to its environment, right? Aboriginal, actually, people in general, the quote unquote human species, I'm for lack of a better terms, are going to evolve under circumstances that are not beneficial to them. Their features are going to evolve. Their body is going to evolve. How they produce and reproduce is going to evolve due to the circumstances of their environment. So I don't want people saying, oh, well, phenotype doesn't really matter, because it does matter to a certain extent. Phenotype is not the sole determiner of someone being Aboriginal, but however, there are Aboriginal phenotypes out there. And although we have albinos, but an albino that is born and bred from Aboriginal people is way different than a white person being born from white people. Okay, because I'm telling y'all, like, some of y'all still believe in that Africa mess, even though y'all come over and say, oh, y'all still believe. No, some of y'all still believe in that yourselves. Because y'all come over here talking about, oh, well, we created. I'm like, who's we? We ain't creating no white people. Those was them Africans. They came over here with that bull. I don't know why y'all over here trying to credit yourself to creating white people. Because either that Moorish, black, or European ancestry coming out, or you're just not Aboriginal. Yeah, and see how many people are disagreeing with this person. That's what's happening. A lot of Aboriginal people are disassociating from reality, and I'm so glad Aboriginal people have called this out, because, like, what the hell? Yeah, and I see this from this girl. She said, "This is one of the most anti-black and violent statements I have ever seen in my life." Yep, yep, exactly. Like, I don't know about y'all, but my mom is Aboriginal. She is a melanated, dark skinned Aboriginal woman. So I'm confused when people say that we are born to white moms, because who who's born to white moms? Who? Y'all got me speaking like an owl. Who, who? But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go because Yeah, that's all I have to say about this topic, because when it comes to assimilation, I just feel like a lot of Aboriginal people just don't know what they are dealing with. And let me tell y'all something. If you want to get away from being assimilated, you're going to have to be 100% self-sufficient. You cannot count on the European for nothing. And that's going to be hard for Aboriginal people to do, because a lot of us are already in the system. You know, if you're old enough to listen to this live stream, you pretty much been already assimilated. You have undergone the assimilation process, because again, the assimilation process starts over with each generation. With each birth, it is start over, because you got the birth certificate, you got the social security, you got the taxes, you got all these things. So the assimilation process has already started by then, you know. So um Aboriginal people just really just gonna have to completely just move somewhere and get ready to fight, because I don't know why Aboriginal people just feel like all we got to do is just pray, do some voodoo work, and let that be that. Like, no, there's going to have to be some throwing hands too. Y'all can't just be talking crap from behind the screen, because that's just not how things get done. And I know Aboriginal people are upset from taking L's, but right now Aboriginal people need to start thinking, what can we do to show that we're not going to stand for this, while not also tearing up our own neighborhoods? Because one thing I'm tired of seeing Aboriginal people doing is tearing up their own neighborhoods when things go wrong. Right? When police shoot up somebody, then they go start shooting up the businesses. Why are you shooting up your own neighborhood? Well, you know that's what you got to depend on. Because I'm telling y'all, I'm also going to talk about this on the whole gender war theme too. That police reform has really showed us how our people get down. I almost say our people, how you melanated people get down. It's terrifying to know that, you know, Aboriginal people already have to rely on pale people for literally everything. And then when Aboriginal people are like, hey, we just want better treatment when it comes to, certain things, they just released the nastiest of the nastiest, the wild of the wildest niggas out there to cause havoc and chaos on Aboriginal people. And now Aboriginal people are like, okay, lock these niggas up. And now the police are not locking these niggas up. So Aboriginal people, it's your time to shine. If you really want change, you just can't solely depend on the pale man to change and to put you melanated people in line. Aboriginal men, I know you hear me saying this, because the protecting the neighborhoods of the communities is big. And I feel like there's so many Aboriginal men that try to skip around that, and you just can't. You just can't skip around it. You can't skip around not being a warrior. You can't be only a warrior online. So Aboriginal people have a lot of choices they're going to have to consider and make, if they already haven't made them. What do you want to do? What do you want to see come out of this whole shebang? So I love y'all guys. Thank y'all guys for watching. And until next time, bye.